Week 1 of the NFL season was everything, featuring quite possibly the greatest comeback ever, a couple other surprising performances, and quarterback play that was flat out embarrassing. All in all, the opening weekend told us a lot without telling us much of anything. However, when it comes to the Eagles, there is some good news. And in this video, I'll get you caught up on what that was, go over the most recent Jalen Carter update, plus dive into the potential add of a corner that could affect Cooper DeJean. Meanwhile, Howie Roseman just traded for a running back, and it's big time. So let's talk about it and everything else around the NFL. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? One weekend and one thing's for certain, it is so good to have football back. I am curious, though, what was the biggest surprise for you from week 1? Okay, yeah, the easy answer to that is the insanity of what happened in Buffalo Sunday night, which I'll get into a bit more. But for Dallas cornerback Trayvon Diggs, what he's struggling to come to terms with is Micah Parsons being a Green Bay Packer. Since on Sunday, after seeing the new number 1 sack Jared Goff, Diggs tweeted this can't be real and to wake him up from the nightmare. Although, to be fair, the bigger nightmare for Dallas would have been if Micah Parsons had been in midnight green. Which turns out, as we learned over the weekend, Howie Roseman was really going for it in an attempt to land Micah.
The team actually threw in the biggest offer was the Philadelphia Eagles for 2-1 to 3-5, amongst other things. Obviously didn't want to trade him in the division.
You can't deny that's pretty interesting hearing what was involved, because last week we had heard, yes, the Eagles were trying to make a trade, but then, how much was it? 2 first, a third, a fifth? I'm curious, though, the really big part is when Jay Glazer says amongst other things, what exactly is that? Now, either way, not really a surprise that Dallas didn't end up doing that trade and trading Parsons within the division. Heck, just the Giants not signing back Saquon Barkley and allowing him to go to Philly was bad enough. But willingly choosing the path for Parsons to be an Eagle would have been straight madness.
My nightmares!
Look, I've heard this take because even though the Eagles had the much bigger offer than Green Bay, I can't knock Dallas in a sense because there's no way they wanted to watch Micah Parsons, a former star, or at least if they made the trade, their former star go to the Eagles and have all of that success and then know they had a really big part to play in it. Plus, on Howie Roseman's side, obviously he would have figured out a way to make it work, but you also have to pay Jalen Carter ridiculous money, and you never know what Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt can turn into. Just like we'll never know what an Eagles versus Lions opener would have looked like this season. Something Detroit wide receiver Amon Ra St Brown warned over the summer, remember in his podcast, saying if we got to play Philly first, then you're going to see what a healthy Lions team would have done to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game.
How'd that work out for you?
It's time. Love from the pocket to the end zone, and Kraft has it. Here he is throwing to the end zone. He's got a touchdown pass. Back to Jacobs. Back to extending the record.
I realize you never know in the NFL, and I'm going to get into that more in this video, but after seeing Detroit in week 1, I think Raw and the boys have a little bit more to worry about than last year's playoffs. Heck, Green Bay played lights out in nearly every phase, and Micah Parsons officially ended the debate on who the best right tackle is in the NFL, as the new Packer had a 17.6% pressure rate when rushing against Penei Sewell in week 1, including 1 sack and a pressuring Goff into an interception. Yet then you think back and somehow Sewell was voted as a first-team All-Pro ahead of Lane Johnson, which is why not only should the debate be over, but my favorite part was hearing the nod to Lane afterward.
I'm not going to be able to get rid of him. He's a hell of a player. I told him, I said, you're my new rivalry now. Like, I don't got Lane no more. It's going to be you. I'm going to see you twice a year, so we might as well buckle up. It's going to be a long one, so.
Like I say, the Packers gave Detroit all they could handle. Of course, it's a long NFL season, like I said, but seeing the performance from opening week does bring into question the fact that the Lions had to replace both of their offensive and defensive coordinators. With a bigger concern possibly being that Jared Goff has had 5 different play callers in his career, yet under the 3 not named Sean McVay and Ben Johnson, he is 3-17-1. Heads up in case you'd seen some people mentioning, or I saw the comments on social media of Goff actually being winless. That's incorrect because Dan Campbell took over briefly in the first season there whenever he was there, and Goff actually got 3 wins. So it's not winless, but still 3-17-1, not good. And personally, I think all it does is make you appreciate Jalen Hurts' ability to win with so many different play callers throughout his career. Also, it should serve as some pretty good perspective here for the Eagles and why the sky is not falling. There's no reason to freak out. Maybe there's some mini concerns, but they're not even that drastic. Heck, another case in point, just look how Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati offense did on Sunday. I mean, you realize the Bengals only managed 7 yards of offense in the second half against the Browns. That's right, yes, I don't blame if you want to go check it, but 7 yards in the second half.
That's embarrassing.
Turns out that those 7 yards were the fewest yards in the second half by a winning team over the last 25 years. Now, on one hand, sure, dealing with the nightmare of Myles Garrett in Cleveland isn't a free win. However, for a vaunted offense like the Bengals, who had intentionally played starters in the preseason to avoid rust to start the regular season, Cleveland outgaining them 327 yards to 141 and doubling them up on first downs 22-11 isn't what they had in mind. Granted, the most important piece of it is that they still got the win. Just like the San Francisco 49ers, who beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle despite losing their star tight end to a hamstring injury, their left tackle to another one, and featuring a field goal kicker who shanked a 27-yard field goal and then had another one blocked. Or how about the Buffalo Bills, who astonishingly gave up 8.6 yards per play, 238 rushing yards, and 40 points in just over 3 quarters? Getting to the point of the Ravens having a 99.1% win probability with less than 5 minutes remaining in the game. However, as the entire world witnessed, some late-game heroics, poor coaching, and a very timely fumble led to one of the greatest comebacks of all time. Look, since 2000, there had been 2,315 teams that had trailed by 15-plus points in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes or less. 2,315. Only 3 of those had been able to complete a comeback. The crazy part for Buffalo, though, is that they did that in regulation, where the 3 other instances I mentioned actually took overtime for the teams to complete the miracle. Also, as it pertains to Philly, Lamar Jackson is 59-9 when the Ravens have a 7-plus point lead in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, Josh Allen is 63-2 with a 7-plus point lead, and Jalen Hurts is 37-1 in that same scenario. Which is why I say all the time, it's beyond comical that national pundits don't hold them to the same standard, at least all the other quarterbacks, when you're talking about literally the most important aspect in that, winning. Like, consider the fact that Joe Burrow just threw for 113 passing yards. Plus, Jamar Chase only managed 2 receptions for 26 yards, yet not exactly the same level of panic around the league for that output.
You know that makes me a hypocrite.
Okay, a lot of you may be wondering where I'm going with this, and personally, it's just the fact that there's a whole lot of uncertainty around the league. So for those that would say it feels like Baltimore, Buffalo, and Green Bay look like world beaters right now and definitely a tier above where we are as a team, we can probably pump the brakes. Remember, it takes time to get into a groove, and Raycon, the sponsor of today's video, wants to make sure you can do that. Look, you guys know, training camp and preseason was a blur. I mean, between all the practice recaps, preseason watch parties, giveaways, and multiple trips to Philly, I could barely catch my breath. However, this fall, we're going back to cool with Raycon's essential open earbuds. Because quite honestly, they're my must-have for getting back into a routine and making things feel a little bit smoother. Now, I've talked about their products in the past, but these earbuds have been the perfect match for me. And let me tell you why, because they're designed for life on the go. Featuring a feather-light open-ear design that delivers clear quality audio without totally blocking out the world around you. Heck, my wife would also agree since these actually allow her to wear them while also running. Yet unlike traditional earbuds, she's not having to deal with ones that fall out all the time. Plus, with Raycon's essential open earbuds, you get 8 hours of playtime and a 36-hour battery, along with 3 sound modes tailored to your preference. I'm telling you, these are without question the best pair of earbuds that I own, and the best part is that they're half the price of other big audio brands. So go ahead, get yours today with free shipping on every pair of Raycon earbuds. All you gotta do is scan the QR code right there on your top right, or go to buyraycon.com/PhillyOpen to get 20% off Raycon products site-wide. Again, that's sponsored by Raycon. Alright, to buy into the Giants and Commanders looking so bad that the NFC East will be a cakewalk is probably a bit much. However, the Giants did just become the first team to not score a touchdown in 3 straight openers since the Lions did that back from 1940 to 1942. So yeah, you can understand why New York fans were feeling exactly like Malik Neighbors on the sideline. Better yet, it got worse once they checked the highlights and afterward realized Daniel Jones threw for 280 yards, ran for another 26, and accounted for all 3 of Indianapolis' touchdowns in the game. Which, by the way, the Colts win over the Dolphins gave them their first season opener win in 12 years, while also effectively changing Daniel Jones' nickname from Danny Dimes to Indiana Jones in just 1 game.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
You got to give Jones some credit. He scored on 7 straight drives. And for the record, no other quarterback in this century has scored on every possession in a game. So to do that, with Russell Wilson throwing for a $160 and the 4th worst passer rating among all quarterbacks on Sunday, had to add insult to injury. Ultimately, though, it comes back to this question, especially in Week 1. What is real and what's fool's gold? I mean, you tell me if you think Aaron Rodgers legit turned back the clock and is going to be able to keep up that level of play all season long. And the same for the Washington Commanders. Now sure, to their credit, they looked pretty solid and definitely got better as the day went along. Especially Deebo Samuel, who ended with 7 catches for 77 yards along with a 19-yard run that went for a score and iced the game. Still though, going back to the game, rewatching it, going over the film, it's blatantly evident. If you haven't done this already, go check it out. But it's blatantly evident that there's still some holes and a lot of areas to exploit there. So for one, let's not get carried away. And after all, think back to last season when the New Orleans Saints came out and obliterated their competition their first 2 weeks by a score differential of 62 points. I mean, if you just went off of that, they looked good and even really put up a great fight against the Birds. Yet as the season went along, and we all saw, they lost 12 of their next 15 games. Whereas on the flip side, that was the case for the Eagles up until week 6 or 7. Remember, nothing was fully clicking until then, and then week 4 was an embarrassment to lose by 17 to Tampa. However, after the bye week in week 5, the fellas obviously came together, regrouped, and they literally became one of the most dominant teams in NFL history. So just saying, come back to present day, and I'm still very optimistic all things considered. Come on, Landon Dickerson had knee surgery 3 weeks ago and was dealing with a bad back. Plus fine, it wasn't the best game from the O-line. Although they're going to get their corrections and will be able to get everything together. Which is why personally, I'm going to wait until like week 4, maybe even week 5 to start drawing any sort of insightful conclusions. Having said that though, even if you want to overreact to week 1, it's still a really good scenario. First off, all bets are off once you make the Super Bowl and it doesn't really matter which AFC team you're playing. So staying within the NFC, the only team you could truly say looked really good in almost all phases was the Green Bay Packers. And fine, say it is an Eagles-Packers NFC Championship game. Even if it's in Lambeau in a winner-take-all situation, I trust Jalen to outplay Jordan Love. Anyway, feel free to let me know what you guys think. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. Also, speaking of winners, I'm going to give away this painting here as soon as the channel gets to 138,000 subscribers, which, by the way, we're incredibly close. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Give yourself a chance to win this thing. By the way, that piece is courtesy of Jordan Spector of Spector Sports Arts, and he's got all kinds of amazing pieces if you want to check him out at spectorsportsart.com. Now, while you're considering adding that to your collection, the Eagles are making some roster moves. First off, announcing that they've signed edge Patrick Johnson to the active roster, along with running back Montrell Johnson and offensive lineman Holland Pierce to the practice squad. That does mean, unfortunately, for wide receiver Elijah Cooks, he was the casualty to make room for the extra addition on the practice squad. Of course, like Anthony mentioned, the Eagles signing Montrell Johnson to the practice squad could hint at the fact that Will Shipley might miss at least one game due to his rib injury. And I'd say so since we also got the word that the Eagles traded for Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby, as Adam Schefter shared that the move is in exchange for next year's 5th and 6th round picks. Remember, Philly had 13 of those bad boys, so a couple later round picks is practically nothing for Bigsby. Think about it, 168 carries, 766 yards, and 7 touchdowns, along with a 4.6 yards per carry average last season. Plus add to it that the 24-year-old averaged 32.5 yards per return on 6 attempts in 2023, and this is definitely a guy that's going to make an impact. Now, I should mention that beat reporter John Clark also said that it's his understanding the Eagles are happy with their running backs and they're really just looking more so for Tank as a great kick returner. So we'll see where he fills in, but either way, like I say, whether it's just a kickoff or also some help with filling in the guys injured, this is an A-plus move from Howie Roseman. So do me a favor, drop a like for that move. I mean, literally, we just got a 3rd round pick for a 5th and 6th round pick. We had tons of picks to go with, so this is not like it costs you anything. You're adding the depth, you're taking care of injuries. Still, nothing for sure on Will Shipley. I will keep you guys updated as soon as we get info there. And the same goes for a new cornerback. Although Jordan Schultz did break the news that the Birds are working out former Bengals cornerback Mike Hilton. Which on one hand, I get it that might not be your number one choice, but it is interesting considering that this would almost 100% mean Cooper DeJean is moving outside quicker than expected. Because for those that may not know, Hilton is a 31-year-old who's played 4,347 snaps. Yet in those 8 seasons and all those snaps that he's played, he's only played 125 of them on the outside. Now, who's to say if that were to work out, even if Howie Roseman signs him, and part of me still wants to believe, and I'm actually having patience for this, but give Jakorian Bennett a legit shot to win the outside. However, with Hilton grading out as the 24th best cornerback last year out of 225 eligible corners, and being the best run-defending cornerback in the league, it's something I could come around on. Look, the dude's only 5'9", but he's not afraid to hit somebody. Plus, given the discrepancy of other guys in the room, just the fact that Philly's working out someone here tells you how Fangio and Howie feel about the cornerback position. Again, as the eternal optimist, did Howie make a mistake? Yeah, it seems like he did at cornerback, but you look at the edge rushers, Zadarius Smith, Howie not being afraid there, you see the move or at least bringing in Mike Hilton, I think it tells you all you need to know. If we don't have anything work out, even Jakorian Bennett, Howie Roseman is going to make a move, they're going to figure out the cornerback spot. Of course, week 2 may be a bit harder to judge whether or not that happens, depending on the talent available for Kansas City on Sunday. Since not only are they without Rashee Rice, who's serving a 6-game suspension, but Xavier Worthy, who suffered a separated shoulder, is trending toward not being able to play.
I think he's probably going to miss a little bit of time here. He'll probably be week to week with that dislocated shoulder. Obviously went down there, went out of the game, did not come back. They sent him for tests, and they don't think it's too bad, too serious, but it does look like he could miss a little bit of time here. So you have no Xavier Worthy right now. Rashee Rice misses the first 6 games. So they're a little shorthanded there right now with some of their playmakers.
As things stand right now, that means Kansas City's top receivers are Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, no offense to them, or, well, I guess, yeah, probably offense to Smith-Schuster, but they're not even close to the same category as CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Although I suppose those of you who would argue Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes can scheme something up to exploit a weak CB2 is also a very valid point. At the same time, if Jalen Carter is there on Sunday, I don't see near as many issues for Fangio's defense. The weird part, though, is that this whole saga has seemed to go back and forth. Because you had one NFL executive tell USA Today that Jalen Carter wasn't going to be subjected to any further discipline over the weekend. However, 24 hours later, there was a CBS report suggesting the other side of that, saying that JC would likely see a potential suspension and that it was back in play.
I know you said you wanted the discipline actions regarding Jalen Carter to be private, but since we will all see the game on Sunday, I was wondering if you could share with us if you anticipated having him for the full amount of snaps or if discipline is going to impact his availability for the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to keep everything that I do with him private, regardless of if you see it on Sunday or not. Every conversation, whether it's a personal conversation, a disciplinary thing, all those things will always be handled privately. I just think that's the way to go about doing team business and when you're doing things with a football team.
All right, now, the question is, and what we keep asking ourselves, as far as the timing, I didn't really think that it was a good news, at least the delay, but it turns out that may not be the case. Since Mike Florio said no Jalen Carter resolution on Monday actually points to no suspension, saying as a practical matter, if the league were going to ban Carter from the upcoming game against the Chiefs, a quick decision is vital to ensure a quick resolution of an appeal. AKA, typically suspensions land on Monday so that then someone or a player can appeal on a Tuesday and then you get a decision very quickly that same day. So therefore, like Florio was saying, maybe it's good news and definitely looking much better. Although at the same time, I do understand some doubt. Because for one, Executive VP of Football Operations Troy Vincent, yes, that same Troy Vincent who once played in Philly, said the league is going to crack down on anything unsportsmanlike. So add that to the backlash back in the spring when Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie criticized both Vincent and Roger Goodell for trying to ban the tush push, and it doesn't seem like that far of a stretch to suggest the NFL would like to exact some revenge in this situation. Anyway, the latest is that we should hear very soon. Been saying that for the last couple days, but, same old, same old. As soon as it happens, we'll go live. Make sure you're subscribed. Turn the notifications on so you don't miss out. Also, do me a favor, drop a like on this video. Really appreciate the support. Almost 138,000 subscribers. I will catch you on the next one. This has been the Philly Special.
Like I should feel like